Neural Imaging by Lori Reisler. In this slideshow, I'm going to go over 3 different kinds of imaging. First, computerized tomography, CT scan as it's called. The CT scan is often the go-to technology to identify stroke, tumors, cerebrovascular disease, so ongoing problems like mini strokes versus a cerebrovascular event like a stroke, head trauma, cerebral atrophy, and it helps the people to know how to help with speech and language issues. How does a CAT scan look? X-ray absorbs more radiation in the denser tissue, which results in lighter X-ray images. Bone absorbs the most. Then brain matter has intermediate density, so it appears gray. Dark parts of the cerebral ventricles or the fluid-filled cavities. How does a CAT scan work? Multiple images are taken as the scanner revolves around the head. Many different angles are scanned, resulting in a 3D image of cross-sections of the brain. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Well, an advantage is that there's widespread availability. They cost less than an MRI, that's according to the book. Both a CAT scan and an MRI on separate occasions cost us about $1,100 each in Miles City in the last couple of years. Other advantages I just mentioned with just being able to look at the slide and notice, oh, there's a brain bleed, a stroke, MS, different things will stand out and be quite obvious with a CAT scan. The disadvantage would be radiation and the health risks to the patient. Those things include mood swings, skin problems, fatigue, sleeping difficulties, and harm a baby in utero. Next, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. It's non-invasive imaging technique that uses a magnetic field and radio waves to create detailed images of organs and tissues. Diagnose things like brain disorders, tumors, MS, and stroke. It's magnetic and it doesn't use radiation, so it's safe. The procedure for using an MRI, this comes straight from the book because I couldn't figure out how to put it easier and I guess shorter. So the patient is exposed to super powerful magnet that temporarily aligns water molecules in the body. A brief radio frequency pulse is directed into the patient. Spinning hydrogen protons get close to each other and then resonance occurs. The radio frequency wave gets turned off and relaxation happens. The molecules relax and release energy as radio waves. Now these waves are picked up by a receiver. The difference in hydrogen and water produce different contrasts. A computer transforms these into images that make sense. The advantages of the MRI is that you get very detailed pictures. You can use it on healthy people and sick people. You can identify the difference between gray and white matter, as well as cerebral spinal fluid and vascular structures. You can detect abnormal tissue and plaques like you would see in MS. You can detect brain disease and disorders related to speech and language. The disadvantages of MRI, that tube is usually closed, so people get claustrophobic. The images take about 45 minutes and can require a patient to require getting knocked out in order to hold still. The room is freezing and it's very loud, not just noisy like the book says, but like a semi using a Jake brake. Another disadvantage is that if you have metal parts, say a pacemaker, or if you've got metal holding your bones together, that might not work in an MRI. Lastly, the single photon emission computed tomography, or the SPECT machine. Dr. Amen was featured in our PowerPoint that you gave us this week, and he's one of my heroes. So this technique examines how blood flows through the veins and arteries in the brain. It uses radioisotope to create single photons as the isotope decays. And Dr. Amen looks at blood flow and determines the health of the brain from a health standpoint and not just as a psychiatrist looking for mental illness. Now here are 3 60-year-old brains, and it says, which one do you want? So you can see the brain with Alzheimer's is full of holes, and the overweight and sleep apnea one too also has holes. That's something that he indicated over and over, is that an unhealthy brain has holes in it. A healthy brain has lumps and bumps. but it's nice and pretty like that image on the right. And Dr. Amen has looked at over 100,000 brain scans using SPECT technology. He looks at the whole brain and doesn't just listen to the symptoms. And he's a psychiatrist, and he doesn't, he said that most people don't even look at that part of the brain. They just ask the patient questions and go from there. But he would never prescribe anything without looking at the brain. And we see in that last slide the toll that Alzheimer's has taken on the brain. And lastly, with the SPECT technology, I believe the book said that there's even more radiation used in SPECT technology than there is in a PET scan. So that would be a big disadvantage. But other than that, it provides some wonderful information.